Good afternoon, students. This is Miss Nzelego Nendi, a staff of Music Unit, a branch of Cultural and Creative Arts Department, Federal Government College, Port Harcourt. I am here to present to all the topic, scale. And it is hopeful that at the end of this lesson, we should be able to define what the scale is, tell us what we understood by diatonic scale, and as well define chromatic scale and all that it entails. So that takes us to the topic. We all know that scale is an instrument used for measurement in the markets, the supermarkets, the hospitals, in labs. We use scales for measurement. But in music, a scale is a series of musical notes arranged in an alphabetical order, either ascending or descending, starting from a note up to its octave. Example, I have a dummy board here representing a scale that will arrive from a note, the letter C, to its octave. A scale can be likened to a ladder. A ladder, you will have a ladder-like movement when we're talking about a scale. You move that way, like a staircase. It can be likened to a ladder, beginning from case 1 to the 8th case. So you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That gives you now the octave. Kinds of scale. There are different kinds of scale, but two are in common use in modern music. One, the diatonic scale. Two, the chromatic scale. We have to look at a chromatic scale. What is a chromatic scale? A chromatic scale is a 13-note scale, and it means decorated. That is, it is a scale used in writing music that involves a change, a decoration, a modification from a normal scale type using accidental movement. We are going to identify it by knowing that it has 13 notes, and because it is not our focus for today, we are going to leave out chromatic scale. But bear in mind that it is a 13-note scale, and it involves the use of decoration to modify the writing or art of writing of music using accidental movement. That's the primary thing to note. A 13-note scale that must involve the use of accidental to modify our music, to decorate our music. That's why it can be called decorated. For the purpose of this lesson, we will be focusing on looking at diatonic scale. A diatonic scale begins from any musical alphabet to its octave. It is divided into two: diatonic major and diatonic minor scales, respectively. Now we talk about diatonic major scale. A diatonic major scale has 8 notes with semitones occurring between the 3rd and the 4th notes, the 7th and the 8th notes of the scale. You can also call them the 3rd and the 4th degree, or the 7th and the 8th degrees of the scale. All other intervals you find within the diatonic major scale between adjacent notes are tones. Take note, you can only find semitones, natural semitones. We call it natural because they occur naturally. They cannot be created. They are not artificial. We can find semitones in other locations of the scale, but between the 3rd and the 4th note, the 7th and the 8th notes of the scale, you have natural semitone. And all other intervals between the adjacent notes are tones. Yeah. We were talking about the semitones that occur between the 3rd and the 4th note, the 7th and the 8th note of a scale. And we agreed or said earlier, I said earlier, that other intervals between all adjacent notes of a scale are tones. As you can see on the board, we have our C note here, the letter, and the tonic sulfur, representing them, the various degree 1 to 8 degree, as we said earlier, making up the 8 notes of the scale. The other intervals that are tones would occur between the 1st and the 2nd note, the 2nd and the 3rd notes, the 4th and the 5th, the 5th and the 6th and the 7th notes. These are the tones that will fall in outside the semitones that must occur between the 3rd and the 4th and the 7th and the 8th notes. Let's go further to see the ascending and descending pattern of a scale. We agreed that it is made up of 8 notes, and it can start from any note of the music alphabet to its octave. Here is the ascending and the descending pattern of the C major scale. We have a note C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C as the ascending pattern, and with a band line separating the ascending pattern and the descending pattern of the scale. And then while descending, you can choose to repeat the C, the octave note, and come down to the tonic C, or use that same C and descend. Either of the pattern is correct. So we have here C, B, A, G, F, E, D, down back to the tonic. In every major scale except C major, one or more notes must be raised or lowered to keep in tune the interval, the order of tones and semitones. A diatonic scale is usually divided into 2, and each half of this scale is called tetrachord. Each half consists of 4 notes, forming the lower and the upper tetrachord. The first 4 notes will give you the lower tetrachord, and the second 4 notes of the 8th notes of the scale will give you the upper tetrachord, as you can see on the board. C, D, E, and F forms the lower tetrachord of the C major scale, while G, A, B, and C form the upper tetrachord of the C major scale. Right here, we can see that F has been highlighted and G has also been highlighted. Why? The tetrachords above are built on C major scale, and we can see here that the last note of the lower tetrachord is F, while the first note of the upper tetrachord is G. Why? The F can now form a key of its own, which will be F major key that has 1 flat. And the G automatically will form another key, because we said that any of the letters can form a scale beginning from the first note to its octave. Then the G will form key G major that will have a sharp, giving us the key of G major. Let us look at the scale of G major scale. We said it has a sharp. It begins on letter G. We all know the letters of our lines and spaces. Here we have the treble staff. Beginning on letter G, we run our scale from G, A, B, C, D, E, F to the 8th note, a diatonic major scale of G. But we agreed that in order to keep in tune the order of tones and semitone in every major scale, either a note or more will either be raised or lowered. Here in G major scale, a note has been raised, and the raised note, as we highlighted, is F. As we said earlier, is F. Here is it. The 5th line of the treble staff has been raised, giving us the G major scale. So the G major scale has a sharp on F. Wherever G major scale is found, you will find F sharp there. It's only in C major that has neither sharp nor flat. And then I have done that on the treble staff, and I also had to do it on the bass staff, because we need to know where these sharps appear in both treble and bass staff. Here again is a G major scale with key signature on bass staff. Beginning from our line, the first line of the bass staff, which is our G, you can see that G in treble staff begins from the 2nd line of the treble staff. So take note so that you don't mix up where your letter G is in treble staff and where it can be found in bass staff. So here is G major scale, ascending pattern only on bass staff. And I think at this point, I will have to allow us to think through what has been discussed so far, not forgetting that scale in music is different from every other scale in measurement. Thank you, and we have our assignment here. You have to tell us what you understand by the term scale in music. You tell us the types of scales discussed and how many notes the chromatic scale has. Thank you. Good afternoon.